Soft rain fell over the city, turning the night quiet and lonely. Standing outside a tall glass building was Evan, holding a white cane in his hand. He slowly tapped the ground as he walked toward the entrance. His eyes were open, but they could not see. Evan was a blind Omega. Life had never been easy for Omegas, but for a blind Omega, the world could be even more cruel. Taking a small breath, Evan stepped inside the building. "Excuse me, where's the elevator?" he asked politely. The receptionist looked up for a moment. "On your left," she replied quickly. "Thank you," Evan said softly. Using his cane, he carefully made his way toward the elevator. What he didn't know was that tonight would completely change his life. Evan reached the elevator and pressed the button. Ding! The doors opened. He stepped inside and pressed a random floor button, thinking it was the floor where his small job interview was supposed to be. But he had pressed the wrong elevator system. This elevator didn't stop at normal floors. It went directly to the private penthouse level. And that penthouse didn't belong to ordinary people. It belonged to the most powerful and feared men in the city, the Triplet Alpha Kings. The elevator moved upward smoothly. Evan stood quietly, holding his cane. But suddenly, he felt something strange. His Omega instincts were reacting. The air felt heavy, thick with strong alpha pheromones. His heart began to beat a little faster. "That's strange," he whispered softly. Ding! The elevator stopped. The doors slowly opened. The penthouse floor was silent. Evan stepped forward carefully. But suddenly, a deep voice spoke. "Interesting." Evan froze. Another voice followed. "An Omega here." Then a third voice, colder and more dangerous. "And he's blind." Evan tightened his grip on his cane. Even though he couldn't see them, he could feel their presence. 3 powerful alphas were standing right in front of him. Their aura was overwhelming. One of them spoke again, his voice low and curious. "Little Omega, you came to the wrong place." Evan swallowed nervously. "I'm sorry, I think I came to the wrong floor." For a moment, the room fell silent. Then one of the men chuckled softly. "Well, now that you're here," another voice continued, "we can't let you leave so easily." Evan's heart pounded loudly in his chest. At that moment, he realized something. He hadn't just taken the wrong elevator. He had stepped directly into the territory of 3 Alpha Kings. And leaving might not be so simple anymore. Evan stood frozen near the elevator door. He couldn't see the 3 men in front of him, but his Omega instincts were screaming. Alphas. Not just ordinary alphas. These were powerful ones. Their pheromones filled the room, strong and overwhelming, making Evan's heart beat faster. He tried to stay calm. "I'm really sorry," Evan said softly. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone. I'll just leave." He turned slightly, trying to find the elevator button again with his hand. But before he could press it, a firm hand suddenly grabbed his wrist. Evan gasped. "Wait." The voice was deep and commanding. "You walked into our territory," the Alpha continued slowly. "You don't get to leave that quickly." Evan swallowed nervously. I didn't know this floor was private." Another voice spoke, calmer but curious. "Of course you didn't." Footsteps echoed across the floor as one of the alphas moved closer. Evan could feel the warmth of someone standing just inches away from him. "He's really blind," the second alpha said quietly. The third alpha finally spoke, his tone sharp but intrigued. "And he's an Omega." Evan lowered his head slightly, embarrassed. "Yes." For a moment, none of them spoke. The silence felt heavy. Then the first alpha asked, "What's your name?" "Evan." "And why were you here, Evan?" "I had a job interview," he explained quietly, "but I must have taken the wrong elevator." A soft chuckle came from one of the men. A job interview. In this building. Evan nodded. I really didn't mean to cause trouble. Another pause followed. Then the calm voice spoke again. Interesting. Evan frowned slightly. What is? The alpha answered slowly. You walked into one of the most restricted floors in the city. And you did it by accident. The third alpha stepped closer. Evan could feel his intense gaze, even without seeing it. You're not scared? He asked. Evan hesitated. I am. That honest answer surprised them. But, Evan continued softly, you haven't hurt me. The three alphas exchanged glances. No one had ever spoken to them so honestly before. Most people were terrified of them. But this blind Omega was simply telling the truth. After a moment, the first alpha finally spoke. You smell nervous. Evan blushed slightly. Omegas can't hide that easily from alphas, the second one said with a faint smile. Then suddenly, Evan's stomach made a small sound. The room went quiet again. The third alpha raised an eyebrow. Are you hungry? Evan looked embarrassed. A little. The first alpha sighed. Unbelievable. The second alpha laughed softly. A blind Omega accidentally breaks into our penthouse. And he's hungry. The third alpha turned toward the others. Well, I guess we can't throw him out now. Evan blinked in confusion. What? The alpha's voice softened slightly. You'll stay for dinner. Evan's heart skipped a beat. Dinner? With three powerful alpha kings. He had a strange feeling that this night was only the beginning of something dangerous and unforgettable. The dining room of the penthouse was huge and quiet. Evan sat nervously at the long table, his hands resting on his lap. Even though he couldn't see the three men sitting around him, he could clearly feel their presence. Their alpha pheromones were strong, but strangely, they didn't feel threatening anymore. One of them pushed a plate closer to him. Eat. The voice was calm but commanding. Evan hesitated. Thank you. He slowly reached forward, trying to find the plate. Before his hand could touch it, another hand gently guided his fingers to the fork. Evan froze slightly. The alpha quickly pulled his hand back, as if he realized what he had done. For a moment, the room felt awkward. Then the second alpha spoke. So, Evan. Yes. You said you came here for a job interview. Evan nodded. I was hopping to work as a music tutor. The third alpha seemed surprised. A music tutor? Yes, Evan said softly. I play the piano. The three men exchanged looks. You play piano even though you're blind? One of them asked. Evan smiled a little. I wasn't born blind. I lost my sight when I was 15. The room suddenly became quiet. No one spoke for a moment. Finally, the calm voice asked gently, how did it happen? Evan lowered his head slightly. It was an accident. He didn't say anything more. The alphas noticed the sadness in his voice, so they didn't push further. Instead, the first alpha suddenly stood up. Come with me. Evan blinked in confusion. Where? You said you play piano. Evan nodded slowly. The alpha's voice softened slightly. Then prove it. A few minutes later, Evan's fingers touched smooth piano keys. His heart skipped a beat. A piano. The alpha standing beside him crossed his arms. Play. Evan took a deep breath. Then his fingers began to move. Soft music filled the penthouse. The melody was emotional, beautiful, and a little sad. The three alpha kings stood quietly, listening. For the first time in a long time, their dangerous penthouse felt peaceful. When Evan finished playing, the room stayed silent. Then one of them whispered, Beautiful. Evan smiled shyly. Thank you. But none of them realized something important yet. While Evan was slowly becoming comfortable with them, the three powerful Alpha Kings were already starting to feel something dangerous. They didn't want this blind Omega to leave anymore. Days passed after that night. Something strange began to happen inside the penthouse. Evan was still technically a guest, but slowly it started to feel like home. Every evening he played the piano. And every evening, the three Alpha Kings quietly listened. Even though they were powerful men feared across the city, around Evan, they became calmer. Kinder. Softer. One night, after finishing a beautiful melody, Evan smiled slightly. "I'm glad you like my music." One of the Alphas leaned against the piano. "We don't just like it." The second one spoke quietly. "It makes this place feel alive." Evan's cheeks warmed. For the first time in years, he felt safe. But that peaceful feeling didn't last long. Late that night, Evan woke up thirsty. Using his cane, he slowly walked toward the kitchen. As he passed the hallway, he heard voices. The three Alphas were talking in the living room. Evan didn't mean to listen. But then he heard his own name. "How long are we keeping him here?" one Alpha asked. Evan froze. Another voice replied, "Until the council meeting." His heart dropped. The third Alpha spoke calmly. "A blind Omega connected to us could be useful." Evan's chest tightened. "Useful?" The first Alpha sighed. "If the council sees him with us, they'll stop questioning our alliance." Evan felt like the floor disappeared under his feet. So that was it. All those kind moments. The dinners. The music. It was all just part of a plan. Tears slowly filled his eyes. Without making a sound, Evan quietly turned around and walked back to his room. That night, the blind Omega cried silently. The next morning, Evan was gone. His room was empty. The piano room was silent. And the penthouse suddenly felt colder. The first Alpha frowned. "Where is he?" The second one checked Evan's room. "He left." The third Alpha's expression darkened. "What?" On the table was a small note. The first Alpha picked it up and read it out loud. "Thank you for letting me stay here. I'm sorry if I caused trouble. I hope your plan works well." The room went silent. Plan. The three Alphas suddenly realized something terrible. "He heard us," one whispered. The second Alpha ran a hand through his hair. "He misunderstood." The third Alpha clenched his fists. "We never meant to use him." But it was too late. The blind Omega they had slowly fallen for believed they had only kept him as a tool. And now he was gone. For the first time in their powerful lives, the Triplet Alpha Kings felt something close to panic. Because they all knew one thing. They didn't just want Evan in their penthouse anymore. They wanted him in their lives. And they had to find him before it was too late.